Hey, everybody, we are back. Happy Friday the 13th. Happy spooky season. Chris Woolsey is joining us to talk about all things horror and spooky and fabulous. Welcome back, Chris.
Thank you for having me, Raven. This is awesome. It's great to see you again, especially given that you just reminded me that it's Friday the 13th in the middle of spooky season. Oh my goodness, how fun is that?
I know it's the best time to have a Friday the 13th, you know?
I know, for sure. I've got a shirt on that looks like it's July 4th, but it's Friday the
I
13th.
love it though. It's fun. I mean, I can't really see what's on. Are they, is it,
They're
what?
like koi.
They're koi
Yeah.
fish? Okay, that's what I
Yeah.
thought. I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
even with the glasses, I'm blind. I can't see anything. I like it.
Tomorrow,
It's fun.
tomorrow is my lovely bride's birthday, and so tonight we are going to see a concert. So I have my concert attire on, and then we're gonna jump in the car as soon as we're done here.
I love it. Well, happy birthday. It's going to be
Thanks.
fun. You guys are going to have a blast.
That's the plan. That's the plan.
All right. Well, are we starting with Crackle?
Sure. Let's start with Crackle.
Okay.
All
Lay
right.
it on me.
So spooky season. We're gonna do sort of a special thing this time, and we are just going to do scare-tastic titles. So we are going to start off with one of my all-time favorites. Now, this movie is special to me for a number of reasons. One is it was written by my writing partner, David Madelon, who is a brilliant, he's not only the hardest working writer in Hollywood, but he is also a brilliant writer, and 100 times better a writer than I will ever hope to be. He's forgotten more about writing than I will ever know. And it's a great film. So that's one reason. Two is not only is he the writer and director of this film, he's also the co-writer of the Amazon hit film Totally Killer, which is like super popular right now. And so David Madelon is co-writer of that film, and I'm just so excited that it's doing so well for him, and he's getting a ton of press about. Have you watched it yet?
I haven't. I saw the trailer and I was like, oh, yeah, this is definitely
Oh my gosh,
for sure.
it's
It
like
looks
it was
so
written for
good.
you.
I
Like, not
know.
only is it's a slasher film, but it's an 80s slasher film set in the 80s. Like,
Right.
it's yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
just perfect. It's just like well, I should say it sounds perfect. But if you're already talking it up, you haven't steered me wrong yet. So I'm like, okay, good.
I
Yeah.
watched it. My wife and I watched it on Monday night, and it did not disappoint.
Okay.
I was nervous because I've been talking it up so much, and I'm like, oh, this thing stinks. I'm going to be in trouble because I've recommended it to a million people, but it definitely lived up to the buzz.
Oh, good. Good, good, good.
Well, so there's number two reason why it's great, why this film I'm going to talk about here in a second is great. Number three is I love zombie films, which I know you do as well. Four, I love fast zombie films, and these zombies are sprinting the entire time. Five, I love contained claustrophobic horror films. Which this is. So it has like everything that I look for in a horror film. And I love independent low budget features. And I think I want to say they spent like 900,000 on this, and it looks like they spent 10 million.
Oh, wow.
Because Dave is just such a great director. He was able to take that $1 million and stretch it out. So it's fantastic. And it's starring Liam McIntyre, who is the lead on the series Spartacus. It's phenomenal in this. So all that to be said, it is called The Clearing, and it is a Crackle original. You can only see it on Crackle, and oh my gosh, it's so good. So Liam McIntyre plays this dad who's trying to reconnect with his teenage daughter, who, as anyone who's been around a teenager for any length of time knows, can be a challenge, zombies or not. And he takes her camping, and they park their RV all by themselves in this clearing in the middle of the woods. And the first morning he wakes up and she's gone. And he's like, oh, that's weird. I wonder if she must be outside poking around. So he goes outside and starts walking around this clearing, and a woman comes running into the clearing, and Liam looks at her and says, ma'am, have you seen a young girl walking around here? And the woman just looks at him and goes, run! and
Oh
about
no.
100 zombies come boiling out of the woods, and they're 15 feet in front of him, and he's got to get back to the RV, barricade himself inside, figure out where his daughter is, how he's going to rescue her, and how he's going to get both of them out of the woods to safety.
Holy
And
crap.
it's awesome. It's so good. It's one of the most original zombie films I've seen in a long time. So anyway, all that to be said, check out The Clearing, Crackle original. You can only watch it on Crackle.
That's awesome. Yeah, I really like when they especially have the fast zombies because it
Oh man.
it's like that Austin Powers scene when they're on that slow machine and he's like, no, stop. And it like takes 20 minutes. Like that's what you normally get with zombies because they're literally
Yeah,
and you're like, oh,
totally.
but the ones that are just like on speed and they're just like zooming
Yeah.
through, like,
That first scene
yeah,
in
there's
20
nobody.
Days Later,
Yes, yes.
you're just like, oh my gosh, no one can run that fast. Like I would be dead in 30
Uh-huh.
seconds.
And you know
Yeah.
what? That movie actually set high expectations for me when it came to like zombies and stuff because you really were just like, this is giving me panic.
Totally.
Like
Yeah.
you would not see like, oh, brains, you know, you're like, you want to see them just like coming at you and you're like, ah, but no, that sounds amazing. Like I'm definitely gonna watch that one. Of course, you'll be getting my review.
Review. Beautiful. Excellent. Excellent. Well, on the other end of the speed spectrum, we also have the George Romero classic Night of the Living Dead, which is phenomenal for its own reasons and also was sort of claustrophobic. And at the time, it was actually a very controversial film because the protagonist is actually Black.
Mhm.
And back in those days, it was very rare to have a Black lead, especially in the horror genre. And so, you know, they broke a lot of ground, zombies aside, with that film, but it was phenomenal. And George Romero basically just started an entire, not only an entire franchise, but an entire genre of horror films. And it's an epic movie for a million different reasons. But go do some digging and find out about the production of that film. It's a little bananas what they were able to do with like $12 and a bag of popsicle sticks. I mean, it's amazing.
Oh
When
yeah.
you,
If you
yeah,
think about like movies in general back in the day, they were really good with keeping it on the cheap as much as possible. It's like
yeah,
nowadays you hear how much they're spending on even like Netflix shows and stuff, and you're just like, I mean, you know, they have the money and you know
yep,
where it's coming from, but at the same time,
totally.
you're like, if you go back and you look and they were using Jello for brains and stuff like that, it still looked good, and you can
Oh
still,
yeah.
you know what I mean? But
So to that subject, we also have, speaking of low budgets, we have House on Haunted Hill, which was
mhm.
Vincent Price, and it's one of the first like runaway horror hits. So it cost $200,000 to produce, and it brought in $2.5 million in. I mean, that's 50s money. Like that is,
Yeah, that's a lot of money.
yeah, totally. And so Alfred Hitchcock went to go see it, and he had heard how much it had already brought in, and he was like, I'm doing the same thing. And he went home and wrote Psycho on that. So
Brilliant.
yeah, yeah, pretty amazing. So he was like, if he can do it, I can do it.
Mm.
And Psycho became one of the horror classics.
Yeah, I absolutely love Vincent Price. And you know what? I've got to say, like the horror movies from that time, they look, I'm not one that needs all of the gore and the guts and things like
Yeah,
that. I want something that's going to like psychologically scar me, essentially. Like
totally.
those are the ones that really like that get you deep. You're just like,
Yep.
ooh, it's don't mind. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love the
Sure.
blood and all that stuff. You know, it's just it's fun, but at the same time, you're like, okay, well, they're all doing it. When you can go to Night of the Living Dead, and even though they are, you know, the slow zombies, you're just like, it's still just messing with you. And it is the claustrophobia because they're
Yep.
literally all just stuck
Yeah.
trying to find a way to not basically be eaten.
Yeah, the psychological ones are so much better. If you want to look it up, there's a movie my son found, who my son's in the film program at his high school, and so now he's suddenly a film snob auteur, and he found this Japanese horror film called Cure, not The Cure, which is a great 80s band, but Cure. It's on YouTube. It's also on Criterion. You can pay for it, but if you want to watch it for free, the whole thing's on YouTube. But it's a Japanese horror film, and apparently it was the biggest inspiration for Fincher to create Seven, if that tells you anything. But it's about a serial killer who's a hypnotist, and he'll come into contact with people and hypnotize them almost instantly, and then get them to do these awful Seven type things. But you never know when it's going to happen. So he'll come into contact with someone really briefly, and then they keep showing that character in the film, and you never know when the switch is going to get flipped. And so the whole movie, you're like, oh, oh, he's at a convenience store, what's going to happen?
Yeah, they're drinking a coffee, they're eating Subway, which is really funny. Subway is a big thing, well, especially in like Korean shows right now. I don't know what it is, but it's like
weird.
Yeah, I know. It's well, I mean, they also have McDonald's and Burger King, but it's like you're just sitting at some place eating, and then all of a sudden it kicks in. That would be freaky. Yes. Like you just never know what's gonna happen. Those are
terrifying. So check that one out. That's not on Crackle. Cure.
Cure. Okay. Yeah, you technically can't forget that. The Cure. Okay, I'll remember.
Exactly.
But yeah,
it's a good one. But on Crackle, what else do we have? So speaking of classics, we have the schlock Tromaville classic, The Toxic Avenger.
Oh my god.
Yeah, talk about going deep for that one. It is a deep cut. Such a bizarre movie, and talk about low budgets. It's super bizarre, but you definitely want to, if you haven't seen it, it's worth watching. Just as being a student of film, it's such a bizarre movie. And I mean, there's like a kabillion fan pages on it. So if you're ever curious, check that one out for sure.
Even if you're not.
Seriously.
Yeah, it'll still pop up somewhere. Like they're even talking about it on TikTok and things like that. It randomly pops up. I'm like, people are still talking about this, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, no, you kind of have to just check it out. Like even just for curiosity's sake, you're just like,
and it was made for $500,000. It was made for nothing, and I'm sure it has grossed millions and millions and millions.
Oh yeah, with how much people talk about it, like even today, it's like for sure made more than enough over what their budget was. Yeah, 500,000.
I know. And Cure, that one I was telling you about, my son just texted me while I'm here and reminded me that it was made for about 5,000. And when you watch it, it looks like they spent 25 million. It's crazy what they did with that.
Wow.
Yeah.
It amazes me what people can do when they really want to get something done. You know how to stretch it out.
For sure.
Jeez.
Yep.
Wow. Okay. All right.
So Crackle Avenger, Toxic Avenger on Crackle. I mean, gosh, so much stuff. What else do we need to talk about?
Never disappoint, honestly, when it comes to, especially this. I mean, look, you guys have everything.
It's true.
It's like you really do have a lot of stuff. And I tell everybody all the time, I'm like, look, it's free. Go watch it. There's stuff that you may have forgotten about, old TV shows. Like I think you and I were talking about it one time. My mom and I used to watch like Nick at Night and all of that stuff. So we would watch all the old school stuff. And you guys have pretty much all of it. So it's like you can go back and look at things for nostalgic purposes, or if there's something you see and you're like, I've never watched it, it's free. You can watch so much, and like I said, be on the treadmill, work out and watch it. I mean, that's what I do now. It's great. And now that it's spooky season, and it's not like you guys didn't have anything spooky, but it's just like now we get to talk about it more because I mean, we talk once a month. And we can't always just talk about spooky stuff. even though we would like to.
True.
It's,
But we can this month.
but we
And
can
they
this
can't
month.
stop us. They can't stop us, Raven.
No, no, they
They're
can't.
not the boss of us. Okay,
No.
well, maybe they're the boss of me, but
Yeah. So just this time though, you can pretend you're rebelling and just only talk about it, but they're gonna be
exactly.
fine, you know.
But we've got like tons of all the 80s classic slasher films. We've got like Slumber Party Massacre and Happy Birthday to Me and Prom Night, again with the Queen of Scream, Jamie Lee Curtis. Tons and tons of stuff on there.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's funny because I go back and I was like, I remember watching them once I start watching it again. You never remember the names because there were so many slasher movies that came out. And it's
Totally.
like, did I watch that one or am I mixing it up with something else? And then you start watching it, and you're like, oh, now I remember where this one's going. And but that's what I love. It's just like if you just get into a mood where you're like, I just want to eat some popcorn and watch some jump scares. Even totally. The 80s, they were so good with that though. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. And I totally forgot, speaking of Japanese film, we have a really good Japanese horror film this month. Did you ever see The Ring?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So great movie, terrifying. I still wake up with night sweats like once a month thinking about that movie. But there's one in that same similar, so I'm sure you know that The Ring was actually a Japanese film originally called Ringu.
Yes.
And there is a Japanese film that we have, the original. There's one on Redbox, so we'll talk about that. But this one is on Crackle, and it is called Pulse. And the original Japanese name was Kairo, Kairo. Okay. And it has a very similar vibe to Ring. It is terrifying. So it's Ring, I'm not going to blow it for anybody, but like there's that last scene with the TV and it's and that's like super scary, obviously. Again, waking up at night. But Pulse is similar to that in that the dead are trying to come through the internet, which I feel like so much of the internet is filled with death anyways.
Yes.
Or at least is trying to kill people, or all of us maybe. Sometimes I wonder. But so this is right. But this is like literally the undead are trying to come through computer screens, and that sounds like it could be horribly done wrong, but it's not. It's really, really good. So if you like The Ring and like all that weird imagery with the black and white movies, Pulse has very similar imagery, and the scares that it creates are on par with Ring. Check it out.
Oh, that sounds amazing. And also, just to go back, if people still haven't seen The Ring, it's been out long enough. So if you do spoil anything on it, it's okay. It's like
totally.
Anybody watching this from my channel will definitely have already seen it. So
yeah,
it was so good. And honestly, I think Ringu was probably a little better. I don't know what it was like when I go back and watch it. I think I preferred that one. So like Japanese know how to do their horror. They're so good at it.
Yeah,
for sure. So good. So I can't wait to see Pulse. That sounds
that was the first movie I think that scared me in a long time. Like I used to watch a ton of horror, and then I went through a phase where it just didn't I could watch anything and it didn't bother me at all. And then all of a sudden I watched The Ring and I'm like, oh no, I'm really scared. Like I'm not going to be in the house alone for a year. Like
you're like, yay, it brought back the fear.
Exactly.
Yeah, that one did it. That was a good one. Yeah.
Yep. So we have tons of classics. Carnival of Souls. I did an interview on Sports Byline today where we both, the host and I, agreed that if you've never done drugs, which I have not, you should watch Carnival of Souls because it will give you the exact same effect of being on all the drugs, because it is the weirdest movie ever made. It's super bizarre, and it is definitely worth watching just for the weird factor. It was made for $13,000. It had a crew of 6 people, including the director, Herc Harvey, who his first residual check that he got from the distribution company for making that film bounced. And when they sent him a new check, he took it down to the bank and was informed that the company had gone out of business. And one of the best pieces of trivia ever, I feel awful laughing at it, but it's so funny. The editor forgot to put the copyright on the final print. And so the first time they aired the film, it went into the public domain instantly. Like, yeah. Yeah.
Whoopsie. Oh no.
So ridiculous.
Well, I haven't done the drugs, so I might as well watch something that makes me feel like I'm on them all at once.
That
to reaffirm my choice, I guess.
Yep.
Whether
well, that will definitely be the film for you then, because you're gonna love all the addiction experiences with Carnival of Souls. But we have Nosferatu, maybe the oldest horror film of all time. All kinds of great stuff. So all that to be said, if you are looking for the scares this spooky season, man, I'm telling you, Crackle has got it all.
Such excitement. I cannot wait.
Excellent. Well, Crackle has a ton of great stuff, but spooky season would not be complete until we talked about what is available on Redbox.
Oh boy.
Oh my goodness. So their horror library is, I think the only word you could use to describe it is idiotic, because there are thousands. I went through them all this month, and it took me an entire day just to scroll through all the horror movies on Redbox. Like it just goes on and on. And then of course every sixth film I go, ooh, I forgot about that one. And then I got to like click on it and read who all's in it. So it took me an entire day, but it's a ridiculous amount of free horror movies on Redbox.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
Like just thinking about it, I'm like, if it took you an entire day to just go through the list, because I'm sure you went, oh, I haven't seen this one in a while. Let's mark this to watch or rewatch or whatever. How do people get through? See, that's why you can't just have spookiness for 1 month. You have to, it needs to either bleed into the next month or start earlier. And I mean, they're already bringing out Christmas stuff. So I'm like, why can't I have Halloween in July? You know?
Yeah.
I'm like, look, honestly, if you've ever seen my place, it's spooky season year round. So we do not just choose 1 month or 1 day to celebrate the horror.
Totally. Nor should you.
Christmas morning, and I decide that I want to see zombies, I will see Christmas zombies then, we'll make it happen.
And there will be a movie for you, I'm sure.
I'm sure there will be. We'll have to go through the list.
Yep, totally. Well, one of my all-time favorite movies in general, but horror movies specifically, the 1978 John Carpenter classic, Halloween. It's so good. It holds up so well. Really Every time I watch it, I just go, yeah, it's like probably the best horror movie ever made. It's so good for so many reasons. Donald Pleasance as Dr. Loomis is so unbelievably good. And again, every time I talk to you, I want to do research and trivia, and I dug up some pretty hilarious nuggets on Halloween. So apparently Donald Pleasance liked to have a drink or two while he was filming, probably while he wasn't filming as well, but definitely while he was filming. And they only had a budget of like $300,000 for this movie. And in 78, that was not a ton even back then. So this was, I think this was Carpenter's second movie, if I'm not mistaken. And so he was like, he literally was counting pennies trying to finish this thing. And so he goes to, one of the PAs said, hey, I think Pleasance had a couple of bottles of wine in the green room while we were setting up the shot. And so Carpenter's like freaking out. So apparently Pleasance came like shambling out of the green room, and Carpenter just grabbed him by the arm and took him aside and went, I cannot afford to shoot this scene twice. You have got to nail it. And it's that monologue that Pleasance gives in the car right before they pull up to the sanitarium in the beginning of the movie, and that guy comes scrambling up, and it's Michael Myers, comes scrambling up onto the hood of the car. It's that monologue where he talks about Michael Myers' eyes and how he has the deadest eyes. And yeah. And so maybe those 2 bottles of wine were the reason he looked so dead in that monologue and was so brilliant. I mean, every time I watch that movie, I just go, that was acting. Like,
it's a brilliant scene. And but here's the thing, if he was constantly drinking, those 2 bottles could have been his sober bottles, and then
sure,
who knows,
right?
But I mean, at the same time, it's like, wow,
yeah,
crazy.
So the movie was obviously supposed to take place in Illinois, in the mythical town of Haddonfield. And shout out to my friends at Haddonfield Horror, which is I didn't realize there's a horror website dedicated to Haddonfield. And they actually talk about Crackle all the time. So they are.
I love that.
Yeah, they're the best. Haddonfield. But it was shot in Altadena and Pasadena, just down the street from me, in the spring, oddly enough. So they had to. John Carpenter bought big, huge garbage bags full of paper maple leaves. And the PAs would drive down the street in a pickup truck and throw the maple leaves out of the back of the truck. One of those PAs was a young actor you might recognize by the name of Robert Englund, who went on to play Freddy Krueger. And he said all he remembers was Carpenter yelling at him through a megaphone, "Is that as far as you can throw, Englund?" And then they would have to drive back down the street and bag them all up because they couldn't afford to buy multiple bags, and throw them in the back of the truck and then drive to the next location.
That is amazing. You do really find all the great little trivia tidbits. Like, they always make me so happy. That's probably one of my favorites, to be honest, because it's just so funny. He went from throwing paper leaves to being in one of, another one of those just amazing horror franchise. It's just, wow. I love it.
Well, it's a little crazy. So anyways, you bet. But we also have Day of the Dead, which is the sequel to Night of the Living Dead. And that is a great one. And that's like the first time. Well, I guess the military did show up in Night of the Living Dead, but the military has a lot more to do with the plot in Day of the Dead. And it's really good. If you like zombie films, I highly recommend it. It is, I think Romero, he had obviously a much bigger budget for that one. And so I think he was able to do a lot of the scares that he just couldn't afford in the first one. And it's a pretty great film, I gotta say.
I agree. Yeah, definitely up on the list to watch for sure.
Excellent. We also have, we've talked about this, I think, before, but it's so fun. It bears repeating. The Nicolas Cage classic, Willy's Wonderland.
Yeah.
So funny. So he's like a hapless drifter, as he is in pretty much 90% of the films that he is in, and gets hired to clean up this defunct theme park that has this band of animatronic robots. And you find out that he was not sent in there to clean up the park. He's actually sent in there as a human sacrifice, so that the robots don't pour out into the local town and kill everybody.
Right.
And yeah. And so he has to band up with this group of teenagers that gets trapped in the park, as they do in all of these films, and violence ensues.
All the violence. Look, I think everybody should watch every single Nick Cage movie at least once.
I think I've told you before, we have viewing parties at the Crackle office, and we argue who would win if different Nicolas Cage characters fought, and we call them cage matches. And so you have to get up and you have to argue as to why you think a particular. I think Nick Cage from Valley Girl would beat Nick Cage from Willy's Wonderland. He was younger, he had abs. Look at that. Like,
Yeah. Oh my God, that's great. You guys
yeah,
have way too much fun.
we
You
try.
know, I mean, the job is definitely, you got a lot of good stuff there. And see
For
why
sure.
you have so much information because you're just like, we love this. You got to love what you do, right?
Absolutely.
Got to have a lot of fun.
Now, we talk about Nick Cage, another horror icon, and one of my favorite actors in the world is Bruce Campbell.
Yes.
And we have a super weird Bruce Campbell film this month called Bubba Hotep.
Yes. Oh my God, that movie.
Yeah. Yep.
It's so weird.
It's so weird.
Oh,
Yeah.
so weird.
Bruce Campbell plays he plays maybe Elvis. You never quite learn if he actually is Elvis. And then a black JFK. So a guy that claims he's like cloned I forget exactly what the storyline is. It's the weirdest movie, and they're in like a retirement home or something.
Yeah,
and
something like that. Yeah.
yeah, and then this Egyptian god accidentally gets raised from the dead, sort of, and Black JFK and Elvis impersonator Bruce Campbell.
Yeah, I mean that's
this thing. It was written, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was written by Joe R. Lansdale, who is a horror writer who I read a ton of his stuff when I was in college. And this is like as normal as Joe R. Lansdale stories get. Like all of his stuff is just lunacy.
Everything comes from like left field. You don't know what to expect because it really is super random. Like you really don't know. It's almost like someone decided to spin the wheel at the table and they're like, okay, that we're throwing that in now. But it actually works. It's weird, but it works. Like I found it really entertaining. Again, I found it weird, but I was still thoroughly entertained when I watched it.
Well, Bruce Campbell is kind of like Nick Cage, who is kind of like pizza. Even when it's bad, it's still pretty good,
Yeah. It's like even day old pizza, not like just cold out of the fridge.
Right.
It may not be the best, but it's still good. Like you can still enjoy it.
Day old Bruce Campbell, I'll take it any day.
Yeah, it's still entertaining.
Now, speaking of weird and speaking of phenomenal pop icons, we have a great Christina Ricci movie this month. She's so awesome. She was great in Addams Family, and now she's great playing the same character older on Wednesday.
She's just amazing. Like everything I've seen her in, like even if it's just like some random weirdness, it's like she's brilliant. So
I'll bet you haven't seen this one. It's really good.
I probably haven't.
This is called Monstrous, and I think it's 2020. And so she plays a 50s mom who looks like she just stepped out of like the Carol Burnett show, or like she just looks like a Dick Van Dyke character. She's like perfect, and she's got this son, this little son that she's driving around with, and you come to find out that it is not perfect. She is actually fleeing a horribly abusive relationship, but she's trying to keep it all together. And her and her son are trying to hide out from dad, and they do it by renting this house in the middle of nowhere that they think dad won't be able to find them. Well, they quickly realize that they have gone out of the frying pan into the fire because the house that they have rented is horribly haunted in the worst possible way. And it is awesome. It's her performance, as always, is through the roof, and the effects are great. The story is fantastic, and it's like if Tim Burton and John Carpenter wrote a movie together, it would be this. Like it's really good. So Monstrous, check it out.
All right, I gotta watch that. Yeah, I haven't seen super recent stuff except Wednesday, because she was. But yeah, no, she's brilliant. Yeah, I'll definitely check that out.
So the other Japanese film I was going to tell you about, and this is the reverse. So we were talking about how the Japanese do such a great job with horror. which is true. But we have a Japanese, and so we it's usually Americans remaking Japanese horror movies, but we have one that is actually Japanese remaking a Canadian
Ooh.
horror film that was brilliant. And this is the new version of Cube. I'm sure you have seen the original Canadian Cube, and it's about like, I forget if it's 6 or 8. I think it's like 8 people wake up and they're inside this small box and they can't figure out why. And each wall has a door on it. And when they open it up, some doors lead to other rooms and some doors are booby trapped and kill some people. Usually one, but sometimes multiple. And and then there's numbers written on each door and they have to figure out what those, they have to decode the numbers and figure out what it means and which doors are safe and which doors aren't, which means I would have been dead in like 11 seconds because I am the worst person at escape rooms. I just like sit down in the middle of the room and cry until somebody who works there lets me out, because I am not smart enough to figure those things out. But Cube is terrifying. And this was, I believe this was a Screenbox original that we have now on Redbox. And if you like Japanese horror, you have to check this out because the source material was brilliant and they did a really good job of redoing the film, but also making it their own as well.
Right. Yeah, for sure. I vaguely remember seeing that. I don't know if I was like over someone's house. I don't remember fully watching it. I probably fell asleep or something, but maybe I'll watch the Canadian version first.
It's so good.
And compare to see how the Japanese version was made its own. But
that's a good idea.
Because it does sound like a lot of fun, because it's almost like you wake up, you don't know where you are, then you got to do a whole escape room kind of thing. And it's like, but what if you choose the wrong thing? Oh, you're dead, you know? So it's
and the things that the things they create that kill the people are really inventive. I want to say the movie Saw kind of, I haven't seen Saw because I don't love splatterpunk, but I know what it's about. And I have a feeling they took a lot from that movie for the first Saw movie, because it's the deaths are pretty horrifying.
Well, I'll let you know when I watch it, because I have seen, I think, the first 2 or 3. And then I was just like bored with it. Yeah. The first Saw movie, though, as gory as it is actually really good, though. So if you can kind of get past all the, you know, I think just psychologically you would also like it. But again, all right, you just got to get past the excess.
Yeah, good to know. Yeah. And then the last one I'm going to talk about, and then I'll let you go because you've been so wonderful. If you're looking for like a classic 80s kind of slasher film, Open 24 Hours is pretty great. So the premise is like classic. So it's a girl getting driven to her crappy job at a 24-hour convenience store. On the way there, you find out that her ex-boyfriend was a serial killer. Ooh. That she found out what he was doing and she lit him on fire in order to try to stop him. He was extinguished somehow, sent to prison, and so she's trying to restart her life, and this crappy convenience store job is like the beginning of her doing that. She gets to the convenience store only to find that her ex-boyfriend has escaped and is looking for her. And I will let it go at that. But it's got, if you ever saw Hitcher with Rutger Hauer, which is a classic psychological horror film, the thing I loved most about that movie was every time you thought the girl was safe, you would relax and you'd go, oh, okay, she's in a room with people, there's no way he can get to, and then it would the killer would find a way to get there, and it was awful. And they did that like 6 times in the movie, where by the end of it your heart's just like, and
this movie, when is this gonna be over?
Seriously, just everyone die so I can go to sleep. And this movie does that really well. She like there's multiple times that you think, oh, this poor girl, okay, she's okay now, and then nope, she's not.
Oh, that sounds amazing. Yeah, I will definitely check that one out because
Open
I like
24
her.
hours. Yeah,
That's gonna be a good one. Ooh, get the popcorn ready. It's gonna be
that's it.
fun everywhere.
All
Well,
right.
Chris.
Well, I hope I've given your binge list a nice shot in the arm.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm never gonna leave my seat now. Like I'm just gonna have to find time, like wake up in the middle of the night to watch these things. I'm like, I'm
There
gonna
you
get
go.
zero sleep, but it'll all be worth it. And I thank you so much for taking the time to meet with us this month. We're looking really forward to all the spooky stuff. Have a
Excellent.
wonderful night tonight at your
Thank
concert,
you.
and
We will.
we will talk in November
I
about
can't wait.
thankfulness, I guess, because
Well, I am thankful for you, Raven, ahead of time. So,
Oh, and I am thankful for you. I
all
always
right.
love our meetings. So have a great time and we will talk soon.
All right. Have a wonderful weekend.
Yeah, you too.
Bye bye.